What is going on YouTube? Trollkin here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Draw Phase. And in today's video, we're going over a Hyper Stun Leona deck. Yeah, the stun mechanic is incredibly strong and should not be overlooked. But before we get into the deck list, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate support, and you automatically enter yourself to win a Proving Ground box set if we reach 500 subscribers. So with that being said, let's get straight into the deck list. All right, so we are running Leona Radiant Dawn as the legend. Calm Order colors, right? That is the domain. When you stun one or more enemy units, buff a friendly unit. So this resolves before the showdown if you're attacking, for example. Right, and your focus is passed on to you, and you get to use your action. So you are gonna be getting buffs more often than you think. The stun mechanic is incredibly strong. The way it works is that if an opponent is coming into a battlefield that you are holding, right, and you use a stun spell card, then it does not distribute damage with its might. However, if you have more might, you can kill it. If you still have less might, then it goes back to the base, and you can kind of figure out after that how to get rid of your units. But it really just not even like with destroying or killing your enemy units. The fact that it just stuns it, sends it back to base, and their turn ends, right, and you just get a point for holding. That's also really good, and don't forget about that. So yeah, so you know, anything that stuns, you'll be getting the buff based off the legend. So we are running all the ways to stun units. So for runes, we are running 5 order runes and 7 calm runes. The battlefields will be Targon's Peak. When you conquer here, ready to runes at the end of this turn. Really, really important because at action or reaction speed, you have ways to stun your opponent's units, and you know, playing as much as you can, making sure that you are managing your resources as best as possible, and being able to ready 2 runes. Lets you play all those action speed or reaction speed spells to kind of trump your opponent in the showdowns, or if they're trying to move in on a battlefield. Windswap Tillock is important because ganking is really relevant because of the other battlefield that we are running. However, it's just being able to be so mobile and moving back and forth. You can hold on to one battlefield in Windswept Tillock, right? You gain the 7th point by holding, and then you can gank over for the victory. If it is empty, or even if it is occupied by your enemy's units, then you can just kind of use some battle tricks or some stun mechanics to ensure the victory from there. We are also running Vile Maul's Lair. Now, we are running a Fiora, right? And because with the legend ability, when we stun something, it gets a buff, right? And then we all know that Fiora is a 4 might unit, so when it becomes a 5 might unit, it becomes mighty. And then it gets all those benefits of ganking, deflect, and shield. So the fact that with Vile Maul's Lair, units can't move from here to base, putting Fiora on this battlefield and then giving it ganking with the +1 buff, right, and then moving over to the other battlefield to help like with showdowns and stuff, is really, really good. Also, it locks your opponent down if they don't have any ganking, which for the most part, like in Kaisa and Master Yi decks and Victor decks, they don't have. So it really kind of like locks their units in that position where you can kind of take your time to figure out how to take care of their high might units, or if they go wide. So actually a really cool battlefield that doesn't get a lot of play. Definitely try it out. It is good in this deck. The champion unit will be Leona Determined. Now, you can use either this one or the other one. I prefer the other one, and we'll go over that in a second, as your chosen champion. But Leona Determined is like a bread and butter of this deck. For 4 energy, 1 power, and 4 might, it has shield +1, and when I attack, stun an enemy unit here. So if it is attacking, obviously there has to be an opponent onto a battlefield, like opponent's units, right? Then it when it moves there, right, it is considered an attack. It is before the showdown happens, so the unit is stunned. It does not get to distribute its might as damage onto your Leona, and before even the showdown happens, the buff is resolved, and Leona becomes a 5 might unit with your opponent stunned on the battlefield. If you have more might, right, then you can go kill the enemy unit, obviously. If you don't, however, you do go back into your base, but you have completed the stun mechanic and you get the +1 buff, so that maybe next turn you can overcome your opponent that way. But more so than none, because you can get this as early as turn 2 online if you have it in your hand or as your chosen champion. It is really fast. You can get it on the board really easily. And yeah, it just does a lot of work. The shield one is also really relevant, especially with the buff. You get 6 might, and it just contests a lot of units that are out there right now moving into battlefields. I specifically, as a chosen champion, choose Leona Zealot for a reason which I'll go over in a second. For 6 energy, 1 power, and 6 might. If an opponent scores within 3 points of the victory score, I enter ready. So very strong swing card, right? If you're falling behind for some reason, I like to have this sitting on my chosen champion unit slot on the battlefield, because it is like a get out of jail free card. Because not only does it enter ready, but once you stun enemy units here, when it's at a battlefield, they have -8. So anything that is stunned has -8. And more so, it is just going to destroy everything on that battlefield. You're going to gain the tempo back, and you're going to take the game from there. Trust me. Like, it works so well as a swing turn card. And I absolutely love this card. It is just so good. Yeah, just giving stun things -8 is crazy. So 2 of those. We're also writing 2 Defies. Defy is one of the strongest cards in the game, I think. To be able to counter almost over 80% of the spells that are out there is absolutely insane. So if you run green, you run Defy, because it just not only is that reaction speed, so it pops at the end of the chain, but it just counters super mega death rockets. Like anything with 4 and no more than 1 power is crazy. It is one of the strongest cards in the game, even though it is just a counter. So we're running 2 of those. Obviously, Discipline, something we should all be familiar with. For 2 energy at reaction speed, give a unit +2 this turn, and draw 1. The draw 1 is really crucial, which is why I run 3 of these, because we do have not that many draw options other than, for a turn. And Discipline. So use this, willingly whenever you need a card, or whenever you want to just do your battle tricks. Really strong card. Probably the best buff in the game. Honestly, strongest battle trick in the game. So moving on to our stun mechanics, we are running a 3 of Rune Prison for 2 energy, 1 power, at action speed, stun a unit. Very basic, right? So if an enemy unit is moving into a battlefield with your Leona, it gets +1 because of the shield, right? You stun the enemy unit, it doesn't distribute its damage. If it's at a 6, if it is at 6 might, your Leona wins the showdown, and yeah, or even if it's more, it just shuts it down, and the attacker goes back to base, and you win a point for holding. Really strong. Like, stun mechanic is not to be trifled with, like, or overlooked. Like, it is something that a lot of people don't really play against, right? Because it's just not being, I don't know, well represented, I feel like. But yeah, the stun mechanic, insane. Also, Facebreaker for 2 energy. You can hide it, right, for 1 power to react later for free. At action speed, stun a friendly unit and an enemy unit at the same battlefield. So this is basically just to kind of nullify the showdown, right? You do get stunned, right, if you're holding, right? It is a get out of jail free card pretty much. However, the opponent is also stunned, and if it is attacking, it goes back to base, and you score a point for holding when they pass the turn. Really good. The fact that it's hidden, also very good. You can play it also at action speed. It's just those certain situations and showdowns when your opponent is kind of like using some resources to kind of over trump your might, right? To get more might than your units have. And you're just like, nah, I'm just going to stun everything. And then, it nullifies the battle, and you can kind of score a point for holding. Xiona's Hourglass. Yep, just a good card to recall. Yep. So the cool thing is that obviously it has been in the FAQ, like clarified. Let's just go over the card. For 2 energy, you can hide it for a power. The next time a friendly unit would die, kill this instead, recall that unit exhausted. So it goes back to your base, right? If it is at a battlefield. And then you get to hold the buff. It has a buff. So Fiora stays mighty, right? And it has all those things on it too, like the flag, the gank, and the shield. Yeah, incredible card. It is not playing the card. If it would die, right? So that's a clarification, right? So it keeps the buff. It is just really good to hold tempo, right? When you're building up an army, when you're having a lot of options, moving things and out, stunning things. So the fact that you can hold onto your units if they're using any type of removal or any battle tricks on the battlefield, you pop this and you get your unit back in the base. One of the best signature spells in the game is Zenith Blade, in my opinion. For 3 energy, 2 power, a little costly, but you do have the choice to either use Calm and Order runes to play for the power cost. Stun an enemy unit at a battlefield. You may move a friendly unit to that enemy unit's battlefield. So, you stun, obviously, enemy unit. You know, if you have a Fiora on Vile Maul's Lair, right, it gets to move over. And then you can just make sure that you have enough might on board to win the showdown. Incredible card. Incredible card. It's really good. It's really strong. You know, also you get the buff from the stun mechanic with our legend ability, and the fact that you can just move a friendly unit anywhere from either a battlefield or your base, just to, you know, make sure that you're winning the showdown. Yeah, it turns the tide. It's a really big surprise. Not a lot of people expect Zenith Blade. Obviously, if you're in a Leona deck, running a Leona deck, like they're gonna probably you know, probably think that you're running it, because it is a very good card. However, not many decks other than obviously Leona play it, so the decks that are being built out there are kind of constructed to play against either Master Yi, Kaisa, and or Victor. So there's very little that they could do to kind of like handle the spell. It is out of reach for Defy. However, Wind Wall is the only thing that can counter it, right? Because of the 2 power costs. So another thing to think about. For units, we are running the Sunlit Guardian. Dude, Sunlit Guardian is just like really solid, you know, cheap unit, right? 3 energy for 3 might, nice clean, no power costs, right? Shield is relevant, and the tank is relevant to mitigate damage off the units that you want to save, i.e. for Leona, or the Zealot Leona, and or Fiora as well. Right, just a really good card, really clean, sits on the base. If you stun it, right, it has it gets the buff. It's sitting at 5 for 3, which is just really strong. We are running also Find Your Center. Now, a card that not a lot of people play as well, right? So for 3 energy and action speed, if an opponent scores within 3 points of the victory, so it ties in with Leona's Zealot, this costs 2 less. Draw 1 and channel 1 Ruin. Like I said, there isn't much draw mechanics, so we try to put as much in here, right, with these cards. And the fact that we do have like a little high power cost with all the stuns in Rune Prison and Zenith Blade, right? Being able to channel Rune Exhausted is relevant, and to draw a card is really is good anyway, right? So that is why this is in the deck. We are running 3 of those, and then we are also running Solari Shieldbreaker for 3 energy, 2 might. When you play me, stun a unit. So when it just pops onto the when it pops onto a battlefield or your base, you stun a unit, you can buff it, it becomes a 3 might. Also, if it is so you play it, right? If an enemy unit is out of the battlefield, it gets stunned. You can move in with even might units, right? If it is a 5 might unit your opponent has, it gets stunned. You move in with a Fiora that is at 5 might, right? Then it dies and you get to stay on the battlefield. So play this like you can play it turn 1 if you really want to, just to give itself a buff if there is an unit or enemy unit onto the base or to the battlefield. I think it is only for the battlefield. Yep, it's anywhere, right? And get an extra buff. But you can also use it aggressively by stun unit, moving in. The enemy unit doesn't do any damage to you, and then you can take the battlefield from there with a Conqueror. Call to Glory, really strong card. At reaction speed for 3 energy. As you play this, you may spend a buff as an additional cost. If you do, ignore the spell's cost, give a unit +3. One of the coolest battle tricks in the game. The fact that it's at reaction speed, so it pops on at the end of the chain. Very strong. And all of our units most likely have a buff because we're committing to so many stuns, right? And then also, you know, sacrificing that 1 rune or that 1 buff to give it +3, so essentially like +2, you know, is just a trick that a lot of people don't calculate, right? With everything, they always consider maybe some disciplines or on guard, so it's always like 2, you know. So the +3 is really relevant, and it's just a really good battle trick. And the fact that the reaction speed is incredibly strong. We are then running Sonas. I know what you're thinking. Why Sona? Well, Sona's broken. That's why. So for 4 energy and 1 power for 4 might, when I'm at a battlefield, ready for friendly units or friendly runes at the end of your turn. Yeah, so if we're looking at all our action or reaction speed stuff, Facebreaker, Defies, Rune Prisons, Find Your Will, all these spells can be played on your opponent's turn when focus is passed to you. So the fact that we can ready 4 runes at the end of the return gives us access to a lot of those battle tricks, a lot of those counters, a lot of those stuns, right? Giving buffs to our units. So Sona is incredibly strong. Like, it's just one of the coolest cards, I think. One of the coolest card designs in the set, I believe. And then it is just such a threat when it is on board. That your opponent is going to commit so much resources to try and get rid of it, because it is just, having 4, it just like gives you so much resource management, right? You can play out all the cards that gives you tempo on board, right? And then you ready 4 runes to react to what your opponent needs to do to try and move into battlefields. So incredibly strong. And the fact that it's only a rare too is insane. So I think anyone, when the game comes out day one, if you're maining green as one of your colors, more than likely it's going to be one of those. Sona's going to be in your deck. We are also running a set Kingpin. So for 4 energy, 1 power, 5 might, tank. Right, so it has to be dealt damage first. I get +1 for each buff friendly unit at my battlefield. It's just we needed something to flush out the curve a little bit, right? The 4 and the 1 power is fine. 5 might is a clean cost. It is fair, and the fact that we're giving buffs to things. With the stun mechanic, you're gonna have multiple units, if not 2 or 3 units at most, realistically. So it is getting +3. You could spend that buff, right, to use the Call of Glory, so it gets +3. And then it is tank, so it has to be dealt damage first, and you're stunning things. And yeah, it's just like Set Kingpin is one of the best tanks in the game. And then we already talked about Fiora Victorious. When I'm mighty for 4 energy and 4 might, I have deflect, ganking, and shield. Yeah, so you're putting that buff on here, and it's just such a clean cost. Like, I love it. No power cost whatsoever. 4 for 4. When it gets a buff, it gets all these things, and it is just a force to be reckoned with. It is the card that you're going to be sending to Vile Maul's lair to gank over, right? And yeah, score points, knock out things. Deflect is super relevant because Kaisa is running rampant. There's a lot of targeting spells. Really hurting their resource management with the deflect is super good. The shield is relevant. It goes up to 6 might. And then with stunning and everything, it is just a nice clean deck list. It is just consistent. It curves out perfectly. You're always going to have access to stuns and or ways to bring back your units with Sonia's Hourglass. Draw mechanic is there a little bit, and a little bit of ramp with Find Your Center. For the sideboard, we'll just go through it really briefly. Spirit's Refuge is actually really good for sideboard against Kaisa decks, right? Because for 2 energy and 1 power, it is a gear. When you play this buffer-friendly unit, and then friendly buffed units have deflect if they didn't already. So this stays on the battlefield, right? This just stays there. So everything that is buffed has deflect. So that also consists that Fiora will have deflect too, right? Because they stacked. That's really strong. There's only actually 1 card in Volibear that has deflect too. And deflect is really good. So if you're going up against a Kaisa matchup or Master E, definitely sideboard this in. Maybe for let's see, what would you side that? Find Your Center, I would say. Because it's just really good. Salvage against if you're going Misfortune or set decks with Dazzling Aurora. Obviously, for 2 energy, 1 power, action speed, you may kill a gear and draw 1. Windwall, if you're going against a Kaisa matchup, once again, switch out the Defies, really halt down their big spells, right? And also for the Kaisa matchup and or control matchups, Mystic Reversal, taking Ichthian Rain is feels so good. Not usually probably going to side this in for many things, but for those matchups where he's just drawing turn 1, like if you get Ichthian Rain, put this in your deck, you steal it from him, do the damage to his units, all said and done, really good. So yeah, definitely try it out, guys. Like, stun is a cool mechanic. I really like it a lot. It's definitely fun. And also, like I always say, like, even though if it not might be your thing, right? or might not be your thing. Why am I saying that so weird? If it might not be your thing, definitely just play it to see how to react against it, right? So if you navigate the deck, right, then you know how to play against it if you see it in tournaments. So I've rambled on enough. Thank you so much for watching. The gameplay is coming up. Make sure you watch that to the very end. I would greatly appreciate your support. And like I said before, if you haven't already, please subscribe. You automatically enter yourself to win a Proving Grounds box set. With that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy the gameplay. Peace! And what is up, guys? Troken here with a little bit of commentary on the game. Alrighty, so for battlefields, we have Windswept Hillock and Reaver's Row. I'm mulliganing the Defies because I really want to get into stuns and maybe sort of units. So with this matchup, we're going against the Jinx, really aggressive deck, so this works really well with the stun mechanic. Kind of shuts them down. So our opening hand is looking pretty solid. We have a Defy just in case of doing, in case they're doing stuff. I'm sorry, in case our opponent is doing any battles, and especially with Jinx, defying Super Mega Death Rocket hurts a lot, right? Facebreaker, 7th Blade, one of the best stuns that we have in our deck because it just has mobility and shuts them down. And the Sunlit Guardian in our hand, pretty solid opening hand. Unfortunately, we can only react with Defy unless we draw something, which we didn't because we drew a Call to Glory. So yeah, mechanic stun, dude, really fun, man. Like I really like stun. Stun is like a dope mechanic in the game that you just don't really see very often, right? Like there's nothing really like it. You can remove things from battle, like in Magic the Gathering, but the stun mechanic is cool, and it like hurts to play against. Like it just gets annoying if you're on the other side. So I ready up and I have my runes, so I drop my Sunlit Guardian. Just a solid turn 1 or turn 2, and I pass. I'm starting to get a lot of stuns and a lot of ways to kind of stop my opponent from doing anything. On his end, he is seems like to be at this point a mono red build of Jinx, so it's going to be super aggressive. So all these stuns in my hand are going to be super useful, as well as the Defies in case of any shenanigans and or spells. Ooh, then looking into his turn, so he's tapping 1, 2, 3, 4 runes, playing a Super Mega Death Rocket from the beginning. Oh, yep, and then unfortunately for him, it's gonna hurt. That I will defy that. I think we're messing around with TTS a little bit because there's ways we found out there's sound effects on TTS, which is really cool. So yeah, like cricket, like drum rolls and everything. So, but yeah, Death Rocket, it really hurts for my opponent when I defy this. It's like the one card that shuts it down. In fact, Oni, I believe at this point, we're just like, I hate that card because it gets rid of like 80% of all the spells in the game. It is just way too strong. I mean, when you're playing green, it doesn't feel like that. Honestly, it just feels really, really good. But in being realistic, it is incredibly strong. But yeah, so it was able to defy his Super Mega Death Rocket. Odd turns from his end because he didn't really develop any units yet. In a mono red Jinx, I would assume it's supposed to be super aggressive, but it wasn't so far. So switch back to my turn. I ready up. I draw my card. I draw a set, which is really good, so I can develop the board a little bit. And then I believe, yep, I just drop a set. Pay my power cost. Wait, I did not pay my power cost. Oh, well, that was a little bit of a misplay. So, sorry about that. I don't think it really would have made much of a difference anyway. But, yeah, so that was a misplay on my end. Maybe we fix it in the future, but whoops, sorry, Oni. So, switching back to his turn. He's tapping 1. Nope, does not decide to tap 1. I think he's kind of just like figuring out what to do at this point. Having Windswept Hillock is really strong for me because I can just like gank over. So he's doing 1, 2, 3, and then okay, so he decides to accelerate his Jinx Unfortunately, then he discards a scrap heap, so he gets to draw a card. Really good fodder card, and to like minimize your deck, to thin out your deck with Jinx is actually really good. Great card. And then he just moves in with Assault. I can't really do anything because I don't have any runes ready. I do not have my Sona on a battlefield, so if I did, it would hurt him more. So he will take away the Windswept Hillock from me, however. Oh yeah, and then he uses his Super Mega Death Rocket effect. Discarding the card because he conquered. He discarded the Phoenix and putting the Super Mega Death Rock back into his hand. So yeah, very consistent, very good for the Jinx player. So we are all tied up 1-1. Making some quick decisions on what to do next. Passes the turn over to me. And I decide to move in on Reaver's Row. Scoring a point, unless he has some shenanigans, which he does not, so I score a point. Oh, well, he does have shenanigans. He decides to play a Get Excited, discarding a Volibear, so for 9 damage. But, yeah, that really hurts. Damage happens, and my set goes into the graveyard. So not looking really too good for me, is it? However, you will see in just a few moments how strong the stun mechanic is. Pretty much almost shutting him down. So, switches over back to him. He's feeling pretty good. Has 2 points. He's ahead on board. Just develop units. Decides to use the ganking mechanic over to the giving Jinx ganking or units. It just has ganking on Windswept Hillock. Moves over to score a point, which is really good. Use that as much as possible, and he keeps all his runes open and decides to pass the turn over to me. So look at my hand. We call it hyper stun for a reason. We have 4 options of stun, 5 actually, and then we have the chosen champion with Leona on board. Looking at my rune 3/6, I do have an ability, or I do not enter ready. It does enter exhausted because he is not within score points of 8 or 3 from 8 basically. So I just develop something on board with my chosen champion and move over to his turn. Decides to float 1 energy, and then probably recycling it for a seal. It scores a point for holding, obviously. Yep, so there's the Seal of Discord, I believe the red one is called. And he plays a Shakedown. Yep, 6 damage, really strong. Uses the Seal. I decided to give him 2 cards. It's my only unit on board, so just, you know, I wanted to... I'll give him the card advantage if he wants to. He's going to just be discarding them anyway. So it is fodder for discarding, right? However, it's okay. I need to save that Leona so that I could be moving in -8 might units when they get stunned. The ability is super strong, and it would just like put the game back in my favor. If so then he taps 2 runes, playing the Traveling Merchant, entering the Reaver's Row. Developing some might on board, 6 might, or does he not? Nope, he decides to put it at base. Mainly for the movability, right? So you can start drawing and discarding and so forth. So he's ahead with 4 points on board. I am stuck at 1. I do have a Leona Zealot on base with 5 ways to stun things. And then I draw a Find Your Center. So with the Leona, You know, I'm just looking at it. Okay, you know, there's many things I could do. So it's basically just like, which stun do I want to commit to? So moving in, right? Focus passes to him before the showdown actually happens. So I ask for any actions, and without any actions, I just because of Reaver's Row, he gets to pull it back into his base. That is the option. That is the battlefield, which I thought he was going to do, so I didn't really want to commit when focus was passed back to me to any runes or anything. I want to use them more defensively, right, and score points with holding, then use it offensively. So I decided to commit to hardcast a Find Your Center, even though I wasn't getting the benefit of the discount by 2 runes. I just wanted to develop a rune, draw a card, maybe get into some units, specifically the Leona. So he decides to cast another Shakedown on the stack of Find Your Center. I'll let him draw the 2 cards. He's holding at 3, and then when or holding at 3 cards. Yep, and then he would be able to draw 2 more. Shakedown's a really good card. You should definitely be playing it if you're playing any type of red decks. It's a lot of card advantage and a cheap spell for 6 damage. I'm not gonna lie, super dope card. So the stack resolves, I draw a card, and then I draw into my Leona, which is what I was waiting for. And then I should be passing over... Or no, wait, I still have enough runes to develop the other Leona. And the attack Leona is really good, man, you know, because, like, the fact that the stun happens before the showdown initiates, so then you get the buff. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's really good. Then I do hide my Face Breaker before I pass over the turn to him. Yep, so he moves in his Traveling Merchant into a Windswept Hillock, discarding Scrap Heap, so he is drawing a card, and he scores a point up to 5. Close to victory, however, I think I should be fine with all the stun cards I have in hand. So the Jinx is all readied up. He's going to pop a Cleave on top of Jinx. I believe at this point we were misplaying Cleave still because it wasn't stacking. Oh, no, we figured it out correctly. Yep. So it is at a 9 with the Assault 2 because the Assault stacks to 5 because they are summed up, I believe, in Rule 512, I believe it is. So with the 9 might, he is attacking, so I pop out my Face Breaker, stunning both units. Oh, no, I decide just to Rune Prison it. Yeah, so it gets stunned. I get a buff. It goes on Leona. She is now sitting at 7. Jinx will not commit damage to Leona. And Jinx will die. So then he develops another Jinx on board. However, I don't know why he moved his Jinx back to his base. It should have been destroyed. I think we figured that out later because of the -8 ability, because it was being covered up by the buff. So he develops another Jinx, discards 2 cards. Yeah, there you go. Now I'm discussing, like, oh wait, that Jinx should have died because it's -8. Yep. So yeah, I was just trying to figure out why he just moved it back to base. So he develops another Jinx, draws 2 cards, or discards 2 cards. Yep, so the discrepancy was that the Leona, the effect we thought was, one has to resolve into the other. When it enters ready, then it gets the -8, but in fact there were 2 indications, 2 different abilities, where anything that is stunned on the battlefield gets -8, which is why it's so strong. Yeah, dude, it's insane. It could just -8 something. Yeah, super strong. Kind of shuts you down your opponent with, if it is like a might based deck that they're running, you know, like sets. Jinx, for instance, is doing doing work, even though all the assault tricks that he has. So still sitting at 2. It's still his turn. He develops a Jinx. Then he plays a Cleave on his Jinx. Putting his other Jinx that's still alive, putting it up to 9 again. He's really trying hard, like using a lot of resources. So I'll face breaker this instance, right? Both of us get stunned. No, the -8 happens, but also my Leona doesn't do damage as well. So he just moves back. I get a buff, and I'm able to hold to the battlefield. So that's why Facebreaker is good. People are also like having a lot of questions, like why would you play Facebreaker? Because it stuns your units, keeps you from killing their units. Well, in instances where there's only one unit of yours and one unit of your opponents onto the battlefield, you still get that holding point, and that is crucial. So I get my point for holding. 3, I move in with my Leona. It stuns the merchant, right? Killing it anyway, and then I score for up to 2 points. And then in my hand, I'm looking really good. I have buffs on both my units. I have 2 Call to Glories. I have 2 Zenith Blades, and I have 1 Rune Prison. So there's not much that he's going to be able to do to overcome the positions that I'm holding. Switching over to his turn, he moves in with his Jinx onto my battlefield. It is the Leona. It is at 5 might. He moves in a 4 might unit with assault 2. I wasn't sure why he did that, because I have a plus shield, so I get shield +1, but I just wanted to stun him anyway. So just to show like case how strong Sun is, damage doesn't happen, it dies. It was pretty much kind of a waste of a Rune Prison, right? Because I had shield +1. But still, if he did have any answers to it with, any type of damage or Super Mega Death Rocket. Oh, he couldn't play that. Or any type of cleaves or anything. He's actually just mentioning how awful stun is. So he decides to develop his board. I don't know why Jinx is not dead because of the shield +1. It would have committed 6 damage to it. I think we just miscounted our buffs and shield. So I develop a Fiora, clean 4 runes for 4 might. I have Call to Glories. I have Zenith Blades. I score 2 points for the holding, and I pass over to him. And yeah, just feeling really good. If there's nothing that he can do this turn, I take the game from him. And looking at my hand, I could buff anything on there. I could stun anything on there. He decides to Super Mega Death Rocket the Fiora, I believe. And that kind of just happens. It is not mighty, so it does not have the deflect. And I kind of ran out of defies. But I could spend a buff from another unit and Call to Glory my Fiora. So it does become mighty at that point. So he will have to pay the extra for the deflect. So it is at 3 life, but it will commit to 4 damage. No, 7 damage, I'm sorry. And yeah, that's another really cool battle trick. Don't forget, guys, you can spend your buffs on your other units to pump up other units that without a buff, right, to get them out of reach of damage spells, especially in those Kaisa matchups. Really, really strong tool. So with the Fiora on deck, right, at the Windswept Hillock, we have a Leona as well. He has a Jinx and a Phoenix, both with Assault. And there are plenty of things I can do to stop this and win the game from here. Because of the Zenith's Blade, I have enough runes open. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 runes open. It just goes to show, if you have those stun cards in hand, the benefit of the buffs, the benefit of spending buffs with Call to Glory, just puts you over the edge and kind of just shuts your opponent down. Like, really strong mechanic. You need to like that. It's not by no means like a beginner's deck. Like, you do have to like know when to trigger what when, because of certain game mechanics and everything. So if you know those certain basics, core rules, then you should be good to go. So he moves in with his Jinx, and I decide to Zenith Blade it, stunning it, and he gets like, I wouldn't say tilted. Owen is a good guy. He doesn't get too upset, but he's just like really annoyed. So I move over the other Leona, giving it -8, right? So that making sure that anything that he moves in there gets stunned. And the reason you're thinking, why'd you do that? Because next turn you would have double holded. Well, remember, I'm on Windswept Hillock, so then I would have been able to pop over and with ganking and score the other point for the win. So stun happens. So I get a buff from the stun. Moves over to Fiora. It becomes mighty. It has ganking, deflect, and shield. All those scary things. Yeah, they're super aggressive. Super cool deck. Really, almost like control-y, right? Like you're controlling like the battle, the showdown. So he moves in with his Phoenix, and at this point he's just discussing. There's nothing that he can do from here. I score the point from holding, and I would just gank over for the victory with all 3 units to conquer the battlefield. So just showcasing how the stun mechanic works and like how strong it is. Really good against aggressive decks, and it has that support, right, by using Fiora to kind of counteract that Kai'Sa matchup with the deflect, because Kai'Sa relies on a lot of resource management, so you know, them spending extra power to cast spells is really relevant and kind of puts them behind. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and tune in for the next one. Peace.